we've got Kendall now. Let's try it again. Hey, bud, how are you?
I'm doing well, brother. How about yourself?
Always good to catch up with you. Fun to have a weekend of college baseball in the rearview mirror. It took us a while to get there, but now we've played a weekend, and the kind of the sprint to the finish starts. So, big picture. I know you guys put your new top 25 out. Not a whole lot of movement, but did you take anything away, kind of as you look across the landscape, especially of the SEC in Week 1?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously Tennessee's not invincible. I mean, this is a team that last year didn't lose its second game until April 21st. They lost their second game the second day of the season. So give them credit for finishing the weekend strong. But that was kind of the first thing that stood out. I think the other thing for me is the rash of injuries around this league. I mean, you look at Texas A&M, they lose Brett Minnick within like 3 innings of the first game. LSU, they lose Tommy White. We don't know when he'll be back. He's got a shoulder injury. We lost him the second or third inning. Hunter Elliott, obviously things don't sound great at Oxford. We'll see kind of what what tests show there. But obviously the word on Hunter Elliott doesn't sound great. So the bad news is, if you look across this conference, there are some serious injuries. I think the other thing for me, I guess on a positive level, is Florida. I mean, Florida is one of those programs that the last couple of years just really hasn't had that look and feel that we're used to. And I think when you look at Florida for the weekend, they were just flat-out dominant. Granted, it was Charleston Southern, but people that were there that I talked to, so they look really good. And they don't even have their projected Saturday guy, Pierce Copley. He's hurt right now. So that was the positive. But, what's really weird, Richard, kind of going back to the other thing, the injury thing, is what's so eerie to me is when you look at Mississippi State, when they won the national championship, they come back. Within a couple of weeks, Landon Sims goes down. Ole Miss wins the national championship. Within a week of being back in a new season, they could be without Hunter Elliott for quite a while. So just really weird how that worked out.
Yeah, there have been a lot of similarities. Certainly Ole Miss fans hope that the end result of the season is not the way it worked out for Mississippi State a year ago. I was going to say, you mentioned Tennessee. It was April before they lost their second game last year. If social media was any indication, I could tell there were a lot of people that were really sad that Tennessee lost their second game on the second day of the season this year.
Well, I mean, hey, you know what? When you act the way you do, like, you're going to create enemies. So they are college baseball's villain, and they've embraced that. And what's funny is, like, people were kind of coming after us for only dropping them one spot. But here's the other thing about Tennessee. They're without Maui Ahuna and still being cleared by the NCAA because of, things that supposedly went on during the whole transfer process. Griffin Merritt, who's the reigning American Conference Player of the Year, was going to be in their starting lineup. He was out last weekend. And they got, yet one more hitter, a younger guy who was out for the weekend. They think is going to be a pretty big contributor as well. Not to mention, guys, I get that Grand Canyon wants to get, a really nice RPI win. The Grand Canyon threw their number 1, number 2, and number 3 starters in the game that they beat Tennessee in. They brought their ace in as the closer to beat Tennessee. That's how bad they wanted to beat those guys.
Well, I don't blame them for doing that, right? I mean, how many opportunities do you get for a win like that in February?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I feel like using all 3 of your weekend starters is slightly excessive.
Yeah, maybe a little. Let's pull it back to the state of Mississippi. Let's start with Southern Miss. They host Liberty this weekend. They get 3 wins. First 2 low scoring, and then they stretch it out a little bit in Game 3. Pitching looks to be pretty good again. And Liberty, by the way, is a team that's picked to win the A-Sun, right?
Yeah, Scott Jackson's done a great job. We projected them to make the postseason. So, that is one of those series wins that some people – in the state of Mississippi may look at and go, oh, yeah, Liberty, you kind of expect them to do that. I mean, Liberty's a really good club. I think the biggest thing for me with Southern Miss is we all know we're going to get Tanner Hall, right? But I think when Hurst and Walter Fletcher you're kind of going, okay, after Tanner Hall, what will be the makeup of this rotation? What will be the dynamic of this pitching staff? I think the dynamic of this pitching staff is going to be really good again. Nico Mazza threw really well. Matthew Adams did great. Cross Sibley threw really well. For them out of the bullpen. I think he threw 4 or 5 innings of shutout baseball. So, Christian Ostrander is an absolute wizard. The guy's fantastic. There's a reason why LSU went hard after him in the offseason last year. And so this is a team that is going to pitch at a high level. And I'll tell you what, if you can pitch at a high level in the Sun Belt, you're going to win a lot of baseball games. Because even though this is a really good league, it is an offensive-heavy league, and there aren't a lot of teams in that conference who I feel like have the frontline arms that Southern Miss does. So, again, Southern Miss, I think we said this in the preseason on the show, but, like, Southern Miss is one of those teams that you can look up, and they're in Omaha, and zero surprise. Like, I think they can be that good.
I've told you before on Mondays we visit with all three, with Scott Berry and Chris Lamonis and Mike Bianco each week. And Scott Berry said something I kind of did a double take when he said it. He was talking about Etzel, their new center fielder, and he said in his 22, 23 years at Southern Miss, he's the best one they've ever had in the outfield. And I was like,
which is so crazy, Richard, because like he was at A&M for a year, and like I don't even remember him. Like I saw A&M in the fall, their fall World Series the year he was there, and I don't even remember the guy. So. Like, clearly he took a step during the junior college process, and then he's taken a big step, since he arrived in Hattiesburg in the fall. So there's something in the water in Hattiesburg, and I want some of it.
All right, let's go to Starkville. Mississippi State hosts VMI. Yeah, oh boy. Hey, Dad. All right, so they win the series. The middle game, they're ahead 10-1, and they lose it. And then they lose yesterday to ULM. And I like everybody has a bad midweek loss, right? I mean, you look across the season, everybody loses a midweek game that they're not supposed to lose. Yeah. Usually that doesn't happen in your first midweek game of the year. And it's not so much that they lost it, it's the way they lost it. Kendall, what are we doing here?
So bad.
Yeah.
Well, I think, and Haydad probably will back me up on this one, but I think the play that I saw last night, from one of those accounts that's like associated with the Athletic, where it showed like the outfielders colliding and then the guy throwing the ball into the ground. Like that might be the perfect encapsulation of the way the season's gone so far for them. And it's been ugly. I mean, I'm just looking back at last weekend. And granted, don't give me hate mail, MSU fans. I'm just using this example. But Ole Miss has yet to commit an error as a team. Mississippi State has 10 errors already as a team. So clearly there's something going on. I will say this. I thought coming into the season, my biggest question mark was not the offense. They're going to hit. They're absolutely going to hit. They're going to hit it at a high level. My question mark with Mississippi State was, really outside of like Cade Smith, like how much do I really trust the weekend rotation? Like Casey Hunt, like I feel like he's one of those guys I've been waiting on for like 3 years to become a frontline guy. Landon Gardman's obviously a big-time arm. I think he's actually has a shot to be really good this year. But there's just a lot of question marks to this team. And so I just think if you're MSU going into the weekend against Arizona State, by the way, Arizona State played really well against San Diego State last week. If you're Chris Lamonis and this team, you have got to take a deep breath and go, you know what, this is not last year. This is not last year. This is not the way this is going to happen. Take a deep breath, kind of clean it all away, and go back to the ballpark ready to play. I know it's easier said than done. But when your head coach walks out of the press conference, and I mean, I'm taking Steve Robertson's word for it, but when he walks out of the press conference and says, like, that was embarrassing and, like, y'all shouldn't have to see that, like, dude, like, we're talking about the fourth game of the season, like, that's not good. So I have no doubt they can be way, way better than this, but clearly they need a big weekend to kind of get this program kind of just, infused a little bit.
Quick timers on the Farm Bureau guest line. Be sure, by the way, to check out D1 Baseball. If you are not a subscriber and you are a college baseball fan, then something isn't adding up there because there is a ton of great content there. It's not just a top 25 poll that rolls out on Monday. There's all kinds of inside stuff, and they've got the SEC Extra on there. Did I say that right? SEC Extra? SEC Inside? What do we call it?
Yeah, SEC Extra. Actually, hey, I know we're all Magnolia State fans here, but Mark Ethers actually has a really, really good feature on LSU pitcher Paul Skeens, who's at the Air Force Academy.
Yeah,
just about his service to the country and things like that. So check that out.
Hey, so we do winners and losers on Monday, kind of like what did you like from the weekend, what did you not like from the weekend, and Borky brought in the best winner in maybe this calendar year. He said Air Force for their opening game, they parachuted all of their position players into their spots.
Did they really?
You got to see the video. It is awesome.
How did I not hear about this?
I don't know.
Did I have my head in the sand?
Maybe you should watch a little more college baseball, Kendall.
Good. Yeah, I guess I wasn't following that game out of like the 200 games I was following. But by the way, I would never do that. No shot.
You wouldn't jump out of an airplane?
Absolutely not. People have that on their bucket list, like that. Like in the event, like the 1% chance that like my parachute doesn't come out, like I ain't going out like that.
That's fair.
I guess it'd be quick.
It'd be quite the rush before it before it ended poorly.
All
right, so in summation on Mississippi State, you're worried.
Oh boy!
But you have not like pressed the full-on 4-alarm fire panic button yet.
No, dude, it's opening weekend. Let's not forget. And granted, this is an outlier, but like I try to go to any scenario possible. And let's not forget. Was it 3 years ago? Landon Sims literally struck out like 10 straight Texas hitters in Arlington. Texas, I think, got outscored by the SEC like 42-6 in 3 games, and they were one of the Final Four teams in college baseball.
Yeah.
So does Mississippi State have major question marks? Absolutely. Do I look at this team and go, oh, they have no shot? Absolutely not. Because I do think when you look at that lineup, like Colton Ledbetter, he just hit a 2-run jack. Like they've got a lineup that is going to score a lot of runs. They just need some pieces on the mound to come together. If the pieces on the mound can come together and they can play better defense, this team could be really good.
I think that Mississippi State team that you're talking about won the College World Series also.
They did.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, am I saying Mississippi State is going to be one of the Final Four teams right now? No. But, I mean, there is a precedent for a team being just absolutely god-awful the first 3 or 4 games of the year and then getting to Omaha.
Yeah. Competition was a little bit different, but nonetheless, I'm with you. Your point remains the same.
Yeah, VMI will not be a regional team.
You sure about that? You're not going out on a limb there?
I will tell you they will not be.
All right. What about Ole Miss? They sweep Delaware. They beat Arkansas State yesterday. Obviously, the biggest news surrounding Ole Miss right now is Hunter Elliott and what the future looks like for him. And we're just going to have to wait and see till Ole Miss releases something on that. And who knows when that's going to be. I would guess in the next week, but we'll see. Yeah. So aside from that, what did you make of the Rebels?
Well, first of all, I mean, even without Elliott, I thought there were some good signs on the mound. I think if you look at Xavier Rivas, Grayson Saunier is certainly a really talented young arm that we expected big things out of this year. Both those guys, it seems like threw really well over the weekend. I would think Jack Doherty would go to the front of the rotation. He's certainly a guy that's seen big innings, has a big arm. Mason Nichols was certainly a key part of this team last year. He'll obviously be even more important from a bullpen standpoint with the Rebels. But I just think the big thing when I look at Ole Miss overall is, they're going to hit a lot. I mean, Peyton Shotney, we were just talking during the break. This is a guy that, has been a little up and down, to say the least, throughout his career offensively. But now he's an older guy who's had, hundreds of at-bats. There's not a pitcher in college baseball, a style that he has not seen. He's off to a really good start. I think if you look at, Kemp Alderman, he was kind of a breakout pick this year. He certainly showed power last year and had a good year, but now he's ready to take that next step and be an All-American type of player. Talk about McCann, so we're just talking about Ethan Groff. I saw him last year for Tulane in 3 games at the University of Houston, and I absolutely love the guy. So not surprised he's off to a great start. And I mean, we're not even talking about Calvin Harris, Jacob Gonzalez, Will Furness. I mean, the list goes on. This is an extremely talented and extremely deep lineup. So I think if there's ever a year that Ole Miss could go, you know what, man, it really stinks not to have our ace. This might, but we'll be okay. This could be the year.
Yeah. Around the SEC in particular, but maybe around the country, everybody's preseason pick to be the best in the history of the world was LSU. I don't know if you heard this or not, but they had the number 1 transfer class, and they had the number 1 high school recruiting class, and Kramer Robertson's mom used to be the basketball coach at Baylor.
She is the basketball coach at LSU?
And
wow.
she is now. She is now. And he used to get custom Jordans.
Oh boy. Well, I'll say this about LSU. I will be fascinated to see them on Friday. I'll see them in Round Rock on Friday, but I will be fascinated to see the dynamic of this team as the season progresses, because all those things you listed, even the Kramer Robertson bit, they're all true. And the thing is if you're Jay Johnson and you're the head coach of this program, managing all that and meeting those expectations is incredibly difficult, because at Baton Rouge, they expect to win the 7th national title this year. That's not easy to do when you've got all these different egos. Dylan Cruz is the last guy I'm worried about. But, when you're mixing Tommy White, Thatcher Hurd, Christian Little, et cetera, you've got guys on NIL. That's a lot of egos. That's being pulled a lot of different directions emotionally. And how Jay Johnson handles that clubhouse is going to probably determine what this team does the whole year. It will not be an easy job. It will probably be his toughest coaching job ever with his most talented team ever.
Hey, I honestly didn't watch any of their games. Who caught for them this weekend? Did Milazzo catch?
Brady Neal,
did they
freshman.
go with the freshman? Okay.
Yeah, Brady Neal's really talented. I saw him in the fall. He's got a strong arm, just a really seasoned bat. They're loaded. Obviously, I would think a little higher of them. They had Grant Taylor who's out for the year with an injury. We were talking about injuries earlier. Grant Taylor was out a couple weeks ago for the year. That was announced. But had they had him, no doubt in my mind that LSU is by far the top team in the country. But without him, they've got Riley Cooper, converted to reliever, starting on Saturday. Thatcher Hurd, who transferred in from UCLA, got shelled by Southern yesterday. So the pitching, there are some question marks there for LSU.
What about Arkansas? They played in Arlington this weekend at the College Baseball Showdown.
Yeah, Arkansas is just one of those teams. Like they've got question marks, but it's Dave Van Horn. Like they're going to figure it out. They lost Jackson Wiggins for the year with an injury a couple weeks ago. I thought Hagen Smith looked really, really good on Friday night. Lefty up to 94, 95, electric stuff. The slider was plus. Hunter Holland, a junior college transfer, was really good on Sunday. Really the big thing with Arkansas is I know people are going to look at the Oklahoma State result and go, oh, well, they won 18-1. Like, that was offensive question marks. But really, outside of Jared Wegner and Tavian Josenberger, 2 transfers from Creighton and Kansas respectively, their offense really didn't do a lot for me. So I think for me, when I look at Arkansas, I go, the bullpen wasn't great. By the way, former Rebel Cody Agcock was coming out of their bullpen, was just okay. But the bullpen wasn't great, and I would like to see a little bit more balance in their lineup. Keep an eye on Peyton Stovall, the Louisiana native. He was a guy that was kind of expected to be like an immediate, big-time player out of high school. Just was average last year, and was honestly pretty average, opening weekend. So he is their X factor. If he gets rolling, I think they'll be just fine offensively, but he's got to go out there and do it.
Kendall, last thing for you. Appreciate your time this afternoon. Chase in Columbus on the C Spire text line wants to know if you think Mississippi State's going to host.
Oh, God. I would say no, but again, it's opening weekend. You never know.
I think he was joking. I think you took that far too seriously.
Hey, that whole street to McDonald's if Mississippi State hosts.
From where? My house or the stadium?
I don't know. How far are you from the stadium to McDonald's?
That's a good point. There's a McDonald's on either side of the town. On either side of town, so I can make a short trip either way.
Okay, well, I don't know. You tell me if you're willing to take that.
I actually think it would be less of a streak and more of a stroll. He's not much of a streaker. He'd be more like a stroller.
Yeah, that's true. I will say this: we're going to find out this year. Let's just say that Mississippi State scuffles the whole year. We are going to find out real quick what kind of honeymoon a national championship gives a head coach.
And that is where we will leave it. Kendall, thanks so much for your time. Great visiting with you.
Thanks, guys.